By the time the boxing world knew the name Tony DeMarco, the real Tony DeMarco couldn't use it anymore. Born Leonardo Liotta on January 14, 1932, in the North End of Boston, DeMarco was the son of a Sicilian shoemaker. A neighborhood kid with worn soles and restless fists, he was known as Nardo to his family, Leo to his friends, and eventually Tony DeMarco to the world. It wasn't his name, but it would become his legacy. Like Rocky Marciano, another Massachusetts-born son of Italian immigrants, DeMarco came from a household where boxing was something you watched from a distance, not something you climbed into. His father repaired shoes. DeMarco shined them. The 9-year-old delivered newspapers before the sun rose and ducked into the park department's youth boxing program after school with his younger brother. But tragedy struck early. His brother died of a kidney disease just as DeMarco's amateur career began to find traction. It was a loss that shadowed him, maybe even drove him, through every round that followed. His parents didn't want him in the fight game, but DeMarco, still only a teenager, already knew something they didn't. He didn't have a choice. The ring wasn't a dream, it was an escape hatch. At 15, too young to legally compete, he borrowed the identity of an 18-year-old friend and stepped between the ropes under the name Tony DeMarco. It was a small lie that would define the rest of his life. Years later, when the real Tony DeMarco decided he wanted to fight also, the name was already taken. The original had to choose another alias. DeMarco's amateur career was brief but respectable. 14 fights, 12 wins. Not a prodigy, but a project. I wasn't a very good fighter when I started, DeMarco said. Being a southpaw didn't help. They converted me. That conversion from awkward lefty to calculated orthodox brawler happened under the guidance of Coogie McFarland and Frankie Campbell. With them in his corner, DeMarco turned pro at just 16 years old, fighting older, stronger, more seasoned men while still trying to figure out which foot to lead with. His first real lesson came hard, a 4th-round stoppage loss to Art Sufaletta. Disillusioned, bruised, and still a teenager, DeMarco quit the sport, but a month later he was back. Over the next 4 years, DeMarco compiled an impressive 30-3 record, a testament to his grit and evolving craft. But behind the scenes, trouble brewed. Under manager Angelo Pucci, the wins kept coming, but the paychecks didn't. The grind was starting to look endless. The road ahead felt like one long punishing round with no bell to save him. In 1952, hoping for a better opportunity, or at least better money, DeMarco headed to Montreal, a city with a thriving boxing scene but little patience for outsiders. There he dropped 2 close decisions in a row, and just like that, the momentum was gone. I got so disgusted, DeMarco said, I decided to chuck this fight business. DeMarco was out of the fight game for a year. He was broke, bruised by the business, and back in Boston with empty pockets and no path forward. He tried California, swinging a hammer on construction sites in the hopes of making ends meet, but it wasn't him. The gloves kept calling. Back home, downbeat and unsure, DeMarco tagged along with a friend to a local gym, a throwaway visit, the kind born of habit more than hope. But that afternoon turned into a turning point. Inside the gym, DeMarco crossed paths with Rip Valenti, a sharp-eyed local promoter who'd been around enough gyms to spot potential. Valenti saw something in DeMarco. Hunger, humility, and maybe just enough flame left to make something burn again. He introduced him to Sammy Fuller, a former contender turned trainer, a man who knew how to shape raw instincts into disciplined offense. 6 weeks later, DeMarco was back in the ring. And this time, he wasn't just fighting. He was rising in the rankings. Under Fuller's guidance, DeMarco rattled off 6 straight victories, setting the stage for his breakout moment, a 10-round decision win over Paddy DeMarco, a future lightweight champion and no relation. It was the kind of win that gets ink in newspapers. More followed. Teddy Davis, Wilbur Wilson, Carlos Chavez, Johnny Cesario, all wins that meant something. By 1955, DeMarco had gone 2 full years undefeated, quietly building a case, round by round, for a title shot. And then it came. April 1st, 1955 at Boston Garden. The city buzzed. DeMarco, now 23, was set to face reigning welterweight champion Johnny Saxton, a slick, cautious boxer known for nullifying aggression, not inviting it. The odds makers weren't convinced. DeMarco walked into the Boston Garden that night an 11-5 underdog. But if Saxton underestimated the pride of Boston's North End, he paid the price. Doing away with his usual stick-and-move strategy, the champion chose to stand and trade. They went toe-to-toe, 2 trains on a single track. Then in the 14th, DeMarco struck. A crisp, compact left hook detonated on Saxton's chin. The champion reeled. The crowd erupted. DeMarco pounced. Volume, pressure, rage, release. Moments later, the referee stepped in to save Saxton. The underdog had done it. Tony DeMarco was the welterweight champion of the world. Boston lost its mind. They danced in the streets of the North End, cheering in Italian, cheering in English, cheering in tears. Fireworks cracked above tenement roofs. Mothers wept. Fathers raised their glasses. Kids shadowboxed in alleyways. The city, for one night, was all heart and fists. Massachusetts could now claim 2 world champions, Rocky Marciano in the heavyweights, Tony DeMarco in the welterweights, one from Brockton, one from Boston. 2 sons of immigrants, 2 kings of the ring. DeMarco was no longer just the kid who borrowed a name to chase a dream. He was the name. By the time DeMarco wrapped his hands for his first title defense, the champagne had barely gone flat. A little more than 2 months after shocking the boxing world by stopping Johnny Saxton, the new welterweight champion was already being thrown into the fire again, this time against Carmen Basilio, part prizefighter, part avalanche that came downhill every round like a steam engine with a score to settle. There was no parade of tune-ups, no soft defenses or showcase bouts. DeMarco didn't have the luxury. He wasn't Marciano, who could make $250,000 for every appearance. He was a working-class fighter with a working-class purse. "I'll have to defend the title every 3 months," DeMarco said. No rest for the champion. No room to breathe. The fight took place in Syracuse, Basilio's turf. From the opening bell, there was a firefight. Inside DeMarco's family home, his father watched the broadcast with his hands clenching the arms of the living room chair. "Stop it," he yelled at the television. "Stop it now." But the television couldn't hear him, and neither could his son. DeMarco fought valiantly, but the moment was too soon, and the opponent too seasoned. In the 12th round, Basilio overwhelmed him. The belt was gone. Just 10 weeks after becoming champion, DeMarco's reign had ended. The scene in the dressing room afterward was not unlike a wake. Friends entered red-eyed, their voices low and reverent. Even Boston Mayor John Hines made the trip, offering his condolences like a priest at bedside. He leaned in as DeMarco lay flat on a rubbing table. "A good Bostonian never gives up," Hines whispered. DeMarco nodded, still catching his breath. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll be back." 3 months later, DeMarco was back. He took on Chico Vejar, eager to show his supporters that the fire hadn't dimmed. It just tightened its grip.
DeMarco, weighing 145.5, is in the white trunks. Vejar comes in at 151.5. They spend several seconds getting the feel of each other's styles. Vejar lacks the explosive punching of the free-swinging DeMarco, but Chico is more than competent in the boxing department. With a minute gone, Tony finds the range. He scores with an overhand right, and Vejar is hurt. DeMarco is scoring heavily with both hands, and Chico's knees are wobbly. Vejar finally ties his man up, but DeMarco is right after him. Vejar has apparently recovered. His head is cleared, and he is boxing skillfully. DeMarco catches Chico coming in with a hard left flush on the chin. And Vejar is down. Referee Tommy Rawson picks up the count. Chico's head is cleared, and he remains down for a 7 count. He's up at 8 and ready to meet the onrushing DeMarco. Tony is right after him looking for the knockout. Vejar is still wobbly but tries to fight back. Tony is swinging wildly now and can't seem to find the target. Vejar ties his man up and after the break scores with a left to the jaw. It isn't enough to stop Tony, and the Boston puncher throws both barrels. Vejar again ties his man up, but DeMarco is ready to dish out more punishment. Vejar is game, but DeMarco has too many guns, and a left to the jaw drops him for the second time. The referee's count goes to 8 before Vejar gets to his feet. Vejar is still bewildered, and DeMarco comes rushing in for the knockout. But the referee steps between them to stop the battle at 2 minutes and 40 seconds of the round. And Tony DeMarco scores an impressive technical knockout.
The victory was enough to secure a rematch with Basilio, but this time it would be on DeMarco's turf. Official attendance was listed as 12,000, but the Boston police estimated closer to 17,000. As DeMarco entered the ring, the walls seemed to quake. The whole building was shaking, wrote columnist Bud Collins, as if the city itself was throwing punches. The crowd roared for DeMarco like a wounded animal, primal and loyal. Carmen Basilio would later say, quote, "They were yelling for my blood."
You're looking at Tony DeMarco, the challenger, who is wearing the black trunks. Carmen Basilio, the champion, in the white. Both these boys are converted southpaws. They are natural left-handers who switch their stance in the prize ring, and both of them carry heavier weapons in their left hand. Their left hook, in each case, is the biggest punch they have. DeMarco, you will notice, however, has a fine countering right hand, which he comes over a left-hand lead by the opponent. Punching again by DeMarco with a left and right, landing well to the jaw, and a solid right hand by DeMarco over the left of Basilio again. Basilio's tough, and he weathers these punches. "30 seconds to go in the first round. Carmen Basilio, the champion, in the white trunks. Tony DeMarco in the black, the challenger from Boston. 10 seconds left in the first round. Again, that solid right. There's some blood over the left eye of Tony DeMarco, as a cut has been opened there. Cut that looks to be about 3/4 of an inch long on the outer fringe of the eyebrow over the left eye of Tony DeMarco. Good left hook by Basilio on the chin of DeMarco. DeMarco's big left, which brought a shout from the crowd, was blocked by Carmen Basilio. Ten seconds left in round number 2. Seconds left in the third round. Carmen Basilio scoring beautifully in this round. Left hook landed alongside the jaw of Carmen Basilio. Basilio can weather a rough punch. exchange of right hands. Both landed, both hurt. That was another solid left hook alongside the jaw of Basilio. That staggered him back for just a moment into the ropes. 1 minute to go in the fourth round. Basilio walks into a right hand. DeMarco landed some belts to the jaw of Carmen Basilio, which would have felled a lesser opponent. Basilio, an amazingly tough character, just shook them off, kept right on coming. There was a solid left hook that jolted him back into the corner again. Let's see if Carmen can shake this one off. DeMarco banging with a right hand. Tony DeMarco before his hometown fans here in Boston, finding the range with the heavy artillery. Basilio gets one right hand in there, takes a good left hook. That right hand by DeMarco was taken by Basilio going away. The second right hand was much more solid. Ten seconds left in the fifth round. Hook bangs into Carmen Basilio, and another one. A big right hand, which brought a cheer from the crowd here, really didn't land. Basilio pulling his head away, and the punch just spent itself on its way. .30 seconds to go in the seventh round, and a smacking left hook, and Carmen Basilio's knees are of rubber. DeMarco trying to put across the big one. Carmen Basilio fighting on instinct, has wobbling legs. He backs away from the rushing Tony DeMarco. DeMarco can't get the punch into the head that counts. The bell. 2 minutes to go in the eighth round. DeMarco with a good right, but Basilio just shook that one off. DeMarco getting in there with those big bombs again. DeMarco landing steadily to the head of Carmen Basilio. Basilio stays on his feet, a little unsteady now, but still up. A little less than a minute to go in the 8th round. "30 seconds left in the 11th. Title from Tony DeMarco. And Basilio, after riding a heavy storm of leather in the 7th and 8th rounds, has gradually fought his way back to a sharp punching, good defensive fighter once again. DeMarco getting wild, and Carmen Basilio landing sharply. Solid right hand smash staggers Tony DeMarco. DeMarco is reeling drunkenly now and falls with a left hook, smashing him down to the canvas, followed by a right hand. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's up at the count of 8. Carmen Basilio pounding him in there, and the referee stops the fight. This fight, a duplicate of the one last June the 10th, as Carmen Basilio smashes Tony DeMarco into a helpless condition to have the fight called to a halt in the 12th round on a TKO.
The bout was everything a prize fight should be. Stakes, story, spectacle. It was named the Ring Magazine's Fight of the Year. Basilio won again, but the night belonged to more than just him. To DeMarco for showing up with fire in his chest, to Boston for roaring back to life, and to boxing for reminding us what courage looks like up close. There's a particular kind of silence that follows a champion's fall, heavier than boos, more haunting than cheers. After his second loss to Basilio, DeMarco disappeared from boxing for 4 months. No press tours, no gym sightings, just stillness. The critics pounced. They had always questioned his stamina, whispering that DeMarco faded late in fights, that after the 10th round he was spent. The whispers became headlines, and yet, when he returned in 1956, he didn't take tune-ups or confidence builders. He walked straight into the fire. DeMarco's post-title fight schedule reads like a death march. Bud Smith, Arthur Persley, Vince Martinez, Cade Gavilan, Gaspar Ortega, Larry Boardman, each a punishing matchup, none of them gimmies. It was a murderer's row of hungry contenders and hardened ex-champions. Some in the press called it mismanagement. Others simply called it DeMarco being DeMarco, a fighter who didn't know how to back off, didn't know how to say no. The wins came slower now, the damage quicker. In 1958, DeMarco earned another shot at glory, this time against Virgil Akins for the welterweight crown. For 9 rounds, the fight was even. DeMarco came forward with his usual blunt force rhythm, but Akins, slippery and calculating, held the line with surgical precision, slipping just enough and landing with a snap that judges love and opponents hate. The 10th round turned the tide. With the clock winding down and DeMarco tiring, Akins snapped in 2 right hands that detonated like grenades. DeMarco's legs buckled. He went down, stayed there for 9, and got up to meet a storm. Akins charged and dropped him again before the bell bailed him out. But the 11th round belonged to DeMarco's heart as he forced Akins backward. In the 12th, he landed a shot that turned the crowd into a riot. Akins hit the deck, more surprised than hurt. Akins beat the count and rode out the round. Round 13 was a war zone. Akins roared back, battering DeMarco along the ropes with the kind of methodical cruelty that erases scorecards. DeMarco stayed on his feet, barely. When the bell rang, he collapsed into the arms of his corner, his handlers carrying him back to the stool. The 14th was a mercy killing. Akins came out like he knew the ending. He took aim and unloaded. DeMarco went down once, twice, 3 times. The referee didn't need a 4th. He waved it off, and the crowd, still buzzing from the violence, offered applause that was respectful, almost mournful. DeMarco had engaged in another fight of the year, but came up short. Less than 3 months later, DeMarco stepped into the ring with Akins again. The result was the same, stopped in the 12th. Afterward, DeMarco sat in the dressing room vacant-eyed, unresponsive. Reporters were ignored, friends were shrugged off. He drifted in and out of coherence like a man caught between dream and denial. There should be a monument at the corner of Fleet and Hanover in the north end of Boston to commemorate Tony DeMarco, wrote legendary columnist Jimmy Cannon after watching the second Akins fight. The doctor suggested he go to a hospital because his brain bled with the tiny hemorrhages of concussions. But pride compelled Tony to check into a hotel because he felt there was a kind of disgrace in conceding his helplessness. DeMarco began retiring and unretiring as many fighters do, not for glory, but for closure they never quite find. In February of 1960, he stepped back in the ring to face the slick and rising Denny Moyer. 2 rounds in, their heads clashed and the fight was stopped because DeMarco's eye was severely cut. That was the beginning of the end. I lost all desire after that tough break, DeMarco said. I had trained so hard for that fight. Don't think it was difficult pushing myself to get back into condition after having previously laid off. I got in a rut and couldn't get out of it. In July of 1960, DeMarco married his longtime fiancée, Joanne Costanis, and for a time, life slowed into something resembling peace. They started a family. The ring had taken its toll on his body, his mind, his spirit, but it had also delivered something most fighters never get, a second act. Still, the fire wasn't completely out. Nearly 2 years later, DeMarco laced up the gloves once more. He returned to stop former welterweight champion Don Jordan, then outpointed Stefan Rettel. The win over Rettel, though, rang hollow. Observers, especially those who had seen DeMarco at his best, could tell something was missing. Promoter Rip Valenti convinced him that if Rettel had any punch at all, DeMarco might have been in serious trouble. His legs were slower, the reflexes dulled, and the edge, that sharp, desperate, hungry edge, was gone. DeMarco then walked away from the sport for good. He tried his hand at real estate, then liquor sales, but boxing had a way of spoiling a man for anything less intense. The suits never fit quite right. The office lights were too soft. He was still a fighter, even in peace. In 1965, a doctor's recommendation changed the family's trajectory. Their asthmatic young son needed a drier climate, so DeMarco moved his family to Phoenix, Arizona. He opened a lounge called Tony DeMarco's Living Room, part bar, part shrine, part sanctuary. But on Father's Day in 1975, tragedy sucker punched him in a way no opponent ever had. His 14-year-old son Vincent, riding his bike through an intersection, was struck and killed by a car. DeMarco never spoke publicly of his son's death. The man who had endured wars in the ring without flinching couldn't find the words for that kind of pain. Not in interviews, not in public, not even with those closest to him. Eventually, DeMarco moved back to Boston, returning to the tight-knit streets of the North End where his legend was born. His longtime friend, State Rep Joe DiNucci, another former fighter, helped him land a job as a court officer, a position he held until retirement. But life still had more grief to hand out. In 1999, his daughter Sylvia died of leukemia. Another devastating blow, another silence to carry. And yet Boston never forgot him. In 2012, the city unveiled a statue at the corner of Hanover and Cross Streets, mere blocks from where DeMarco grew up. It showed him in fighting stance, frozen in bronze, arms cocked with that same defiant pride he carried through every round of his career. He returned to that neighborhood in his final years, a living monument to a vanished era. In 2019, he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, finally recognized not just for what he did, but for what he endured. Tony DeMarco passed away on October 11th, 2021, at the age of 89. His health had been declining, but his name still carried weight in Boston, where championship banners fly and underdog stories live forever. He was only welterweight champion for 10 weeks, but for a city like Boston, that was more than enough. He gave the city a reason to throw open its windows, flood its streets, and believe that heart could be enough. And for that, his place in boxing history is permanent.